all-day sits. Everybody loves to say they do them, but nobody loves to actually do them because they are rough on the body if you don't do it the right way. There are several reasons to do it: early season, late season, even pre-rut. The best reason to do it is because whenever other hunters get down, they push deer. So a lot of deer get pushed from like 9 a.m. to like 3 p.m., the periods where people are going out of the woods and then coming back in. So if you can stand to sit all day long, you're not going to see a lot of daytime, midday action, outside of the rut. But you might see some natural movement too, but you're going to see a lot of deer get bumped as well, especially if you hunt areas that receive some pressure. And as I alluded to, the next reason to do it is because there are natural midday movements. I've got cell cameras up right now, and we're getting pictures of deer naturally moving, even along, staging areas and even the edges of small food sources, not major destination food sources, but smaller ones, at times from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So even deer move midday as well. And especially as you get later in the season, deer will naturally move midday on their own because they're trying to avoid, the hunters that they know spend the bulk of their time the first few hours and last few hours of the day. Deer, they pattern hunters too, and they figure things out over time. So deer react to that and naturally move during midday hours, especially mature bucks, to get away from that hunting pressure and kind of move when deer hunters aren't out there, so to speak. And then finally, the best reason to do all-day sits is during the rut. From that late October to mid to late November time frame, that's the best window to do all-day sits, especially if that's when your rut falls. Now, other ruts in some parts of the country, the southeast, have ruts outside of that, but that 3 to 4 week period that surrounds your rut, whenever that is the best time to do all-day sits. So remember that, do that, but there are certain things that you can do to maximize the effectiveness of your all-day sit as well. Now, all-day sits aren't for everyone. Those who have chronic illness, chronic pain, arthritis, anybody who has trouble with aches and pains, it's going to be hard for them to do an all-day sit in a tree stand. But there's a caveat: you can do all-day sits in ground blinds and elevated blinds too, and those are much more comfortable. So you just got to find ways around whatever your personal handicap is if you have health issues. There are certain items that can make it simpler as well. If you're hunting in a tree stand, make sure you have a good seat cushion. Make sure you're in a good tree stand to begin with, something that's comfortable, something that you like, that hugs you, that you can relax in. If you're having to sit all cramped up all day, you're not going to be able to do an all-day sit. So make sure your stand or your blind, your chair, your seat is comfortable. Make sure your clothing is comfortable. It needs to match the temperature and the climate. If it's raining, have rain gear. You're not going to be able to sit all day without it. If it's cold, have warm clothing. If it's hot, have cool clothing. You just make sure that you are comfortable in that situation. You also need to bring everything with you that you're going to need throughout the day. Toilet paper, a must-have. Food and snacks for lunch, a must-have. Plenty of water to drink, definitely bring it. Anything else that you need to be comfortable throughout the entire sit, the entire day, you need to bring it with you. And remember, all-day sits, you need to make sure that you are optimizing those. Don't just sit anywhere. You're not going to want to do an all-day sit over a major food source because you're going to have a wide gap there where you're not going to see much. When you're doing all-day sits, you're wanting to see all-day action, and the best way to do that is to hunt inside a cover. You may not want to get all the way into a bedding area, but you at least want to be in a staging area or on the fringes of good bedding cover. That way you have the likelihood or the odds of seeing some good midday action as well. Especially true during the rut. If I'm going to hunt an all-day sit during the rut, I want to focus on a pinch point somewhere, such as a funnel, a pinch point, a saddle, something that condenses the deer movement, maybe a ridge line where bucks are cruising, a bench, a leeward ridge, anywhere that's going to basically has the potential, so to speak. And generally that's going to be in cover or in a terrain feature that condenses and pinches deer movement. Something that you can also think about too is just because you're doing an all-day sit doesn't mean you have to do it in the same spot. So if you want to hunt high up on a ridge close to a bedding area of a morning, catch those deer coming back up to feed for the first half or first 2/3 of the day, great. And then if you think that you would have better success somewhere else, such as sitting over a small food plot or in a staging area or a staging food source between bedding and major feed, You know, you can make a move, make sure you're doing it without spooking deer, but that you don't have to sit in the exact same spot, even though it's an all-day sit. And then finally, just remember to use hunt stand to maximize your effectiveness. You know, anytime you're doing an all-day sit, you're putting a lot of time and effort into that spot. So make sure you scout plenty. Make sure that that is the X, so to speak. That's not just a duck hunting term, that's a deer hunting term too. Find the exact spot you want to be, mark it on hunt stand, then route your entry route to get in there so you're not spooking deer, as well as your exit route. That's just as important because it conserves and preserves that area for the next hunt. So just make sure you're using hunt stand to its fullest potential. Obviously, throughout the day, that wind's going to change. It's going to shift. You make sure you're using the wind direction tool to see how that's doing, especially if you are in an area where it's really light wind and you can't really feel it. Sometimes that local terrain can impact and change it slightly. It might read north on the app, but you might be in an area where that wind kind of hits the terrain and bounces a little bit. So even though you're using that tool, sometimes it's good to check it yourself, not because the tool is wrong, but because the terrain can impact wind, and it might be just slightly different from what that true prevailing wind is that's being predicted. So always use hunt stand to its fullest. It's a powerful tool for sure, and it can really help you on your all-day sits as well, especially when you're trying to figure a property out in your downtime. Study that app, study all the map layers. There are times when you study map layers and you see something that you didn't see with another map layer. You might go from an aerial to topo or aerial to hybrid, and you're like, oh, boom, that's the spot right there. And you just didn't see it before because you weren't using the right layer. So use all the different layers. If you don't have time even before the hunt, and you've got some downtime in those slower periods during the hunt, study that app even then. Sometimes it clicks, and then you can make an adjustment on the fly right there during the hunt. Good luck this fall. I hope you have some comfortable and some successful all-day sits.